Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Stickers and Scuffs podcast. Cam Graydon Bun, and we are on crossover episode, I think number 3 with our podcasts, racing podcasts. You can't actually see these guys on here because we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but the boys from the wide world of motorsports are here. James Jordan and Michael Wallace are here. Boys, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thank you very much, boys. It's good to be on the show finally. It's been a long time that we've seen you guys around, and it's good to be here. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Much appreciated. Spread the love of the podcasts, and we'll definitely be returning the favor at some point.
I love that, man. I love the spread the love, man. We're just like the hippies out here. Yeah, that's totally it.
That's
Totally
right.
right, brother. We've been lucky enough to have some motorsports podcasts. The Winging It boys on here, Winging It, Wingnut Sports with Driver and Deep. There you go. They could be winging it too.
Winging it. There you go.
That sounds like a Pinty's podcast. There, we're winging it. But
nice.
I'm curious how you guys kind of came together. I'm going to ask you, James, how the wide world of motorsports began.
The wide world of motorsports all began when we were able to cover our first race in the summer of 2015 at CTMP at the Chevy Silverado weekend, and that was our first time to be able to get a real taste of being able to bring the news from the track to the community. And for a few years there, we were just kind of on the FM. It was an FM only show on 102.7 CKMS Radio Waterloo. And throughout the years, we were able to kind of just pick up a little bit of a following, get some stuff under our belt, cover some races. And eventually, just right before the pandemic in 2019, we decided to kind of spread out into the podcast world. And I was also looking for some other race fans to bring a perspective from the race fan angle, and also share the love for racing. And that's when Wallace was he was obviously on board for that, and we've had Wallace on the show for a couple of years now. Even though what's interesting though is we actually have not physically met yet.
No. Which is funny, and I've met Cam before I've met you, so and I've known you way longer. I would say that I didn't even know Cam, and I met Cam. So it's just how it's been.
Dynamic there with there's a bit of a distance between you and I physically, but in the motorsports we're close. With the
emotionally, we're just right there.
So that's what we bring that spin to on the show. But hopefully with the second round, Wallace wasn't able to meet up. So hopefully with the Canada Day weekend for IMSA, we're hopefully able to get some IMSA under our belt, some sports car racing out there, and bring
under your belt.
Yeah, that's right. You've been to some IMSA races, but the heart of the wide world of motorsports was always to bring the news from the track to the community. It started on a community radio station, and we're still on a couple of community radio stations. So that's always been our goal. We're focused on bringing what happens to the track to people, to the masses, to be able to bring something that's clear and have the facts, with all, and especially throughout the last few years, especially with all the misinformation and whatnot. And we're able to have some pride in just bringing no fake news to people. You see a lot of it out there, and that was another inspiration to me too. Is I would see people post up stuff, and it would be so false, and it's like, or maybe they wouldn't be right on it, and you kind of help them out and correct them. And that's what it's all about, is sharing it for the next generations. continue racing on forever. And that's the wide world of motorsports.
That's
Well,
what we're talking about.
I feel
right?
like we need to applause.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm here.
I mean, Canada is like obviously not the hotbed that especially the southeastern United States is in particular, but the rabid race fan like the four of us right here, I mean, we aren't as represented per capita maybe as American citizens, but I mean, like you say, with the options available in terms of podcasting and with the FM radio and race time radio and satellite radio, there's all kinds of options for Canadian race fans who pound for pound and person for person will go toe to toe with any American race fan. Sorry,
Right.
not sorry. We're every bit as rabid as a race fan as Americans, though, right, guys?
For sure.
Yeah.
100%.
And you kind of see that at the racetrack too.
Yeah.
You really get a vibe of that.
Yep.
Walking around and being around the crowd, and we're proud of our local racing.
Yeah.
And especially, and it's really cool when we would see drivers come down from our neighbors down south come up, and they'll even say, hey, they take it serious up here. And not only that, we kind of welcome them in and go, hey, let's welcome to our yard kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like this isn't effing T-ball up here. I mean, it's every bit as fierce as American racing. It's just maybe not as saturated, if you will, in the Great White North, and we only have probably 10 weeks of racing season to get our year of asphalt and dirt thrills in, and then it goes to the snowmobile guys.
Well,
that's awesome too.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. I always get with people always ask me, about hockey or whatnot, where I'm from, I'm more north than all of you guys. And so hockey's pretty big up here, but it's always, no, I just racing. Well, what kind of racing? And for me, it's everything. It's NASCAR, it's IndyCar, it's Formula One, it's endurance racing, GT, it's everything. So, but
nice.
it's just racing.
We have the same mentality, I think, because I think we're both, I think guilty in a sense. I think for myself, I was guilty of not following Canadian motorsports really at all, except for maybe the NASCAR Pinty series and through the APC series, the Super Stock series, the weekly racing that you catch at Delaware Speedway. Like I look forward to it more than I look forward to cup racing than ever before. And I don't know if it's, and maybe you guys can speak on this.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, sorry, exactly. I don't know if I don't know if you guys feel the same thing, where it's like when you step in that garage, you don't get that experience and you don't get that kind of, I don't feel you get the camaraderie that you do in the United States, because it is so big down there. NASCAR is so big, IndyCar is so big, and they're very, I feel like, protected, and you can't really, it's not as accessible.
It's like a tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
So the only series that I would say is as accessible as what I experienced at Sunset is IMSA, and I've experienced that at CTMP, and their paddock it's the same. You can walk up. Obviously, they have their seatbelt things up, so you can't go in and you can't bug the mechanics. But there's been numerous times I've just offhand of a driver, Oz Negri, who's very talented, prototype driver from Brazil. He was sitting there, and I took a couple pictures, and I said, "Hey, I really like you," and he said, "Hey, come sit in." So I sat in his hospitality area, and I said, "I really like the car," because at the time it was the first time we've seen these European prototypes come here. And he's like, "Go in there, take pictures." And I went in there and got all around and took pictures. And you don't get that kind of access, and you get that access with the Pinty series, which is really nice too. And Yeah, that whole thing where you said of this new love for local Canadian short track racing, I feel it too, and I'm just wondering if that it's been propelled out of the pandemic. It's been shot out because we haven't had it for 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know, James. What's your kind of opinion on it? And I'm going to throw that definitely. I've heard that before about IMSA from our buddy Mark Urban. Stephen Ellis did the same thing. They've talked glowingly
Mhm.
about IMSA and how amazing their paddock and their hospitality and just in general how it is to deal with them is.
The so for me, I've never been to an IMSA race before. So for something like that, for me, I'm excited to try to look forward to experience something like that. And within the next few weeks, it's just less than almost a month. That's about a month away for us. So
Yeah,
I've been to an IndyCar race and the Honda Indy. I've been to a couple of those, and the paddock there it is so cool going into the convention center there and going through the paddock, and that was just such a unique experience there. But nothing beats going to CTMP, in my opinion, for that experience. And we even saw it a couple of weeks ago there, just how loaded it was at one point. And even through that storm and whatnot, people came back, and I could tell people were so excited to be back, and they were very pumped up to see racing. I just walking around and
yeah.
taking pictures and whatnot, I could just hear from people. I could hear their conversations and them saying how they're talking about like what they love racing, all the drivers that they're picking for the race, or maybe catching up. A lot of people, and as I said earlier, it's kind of a communal or a tribe. A lot of people, these people haven't seen each other in a couple of years, and a lot of people got to catch up a couple of weeks ago, and that was it was good to be back too. It was my first camping trip ever, and that happened to have been just at CTMP, and the community there is just so fantastic, and I feel like and I've seen that at Jukasa, and you see that at other local tracks as well. I saw that Delaware last year, and there's just nothing like it. That especially with the APC crowd there, there's just nothing like it. And getting in there with the families of these race teams and the drivers, and seeing some of the other people like us, the media folk, that quote unquote media folk like Wallace and I, that go in there, and we get to share our passion
Fake
for
media.
racing. I'm sure it happens a lot of places around the world, but there's got to be nothing like it, especially in Ontario here.
It's pretty rewarding feeling, definitely. I mean, and as you said, James, the energy felt old school, like 2019 and prior, having the Castrol Victoria Day Speed Fest back on its like the proper date. The place was jumping at most of the time leading up to the chaos and everything that we all know how that went. Everybody got blown to us and whatnot. But I mean, that was a good testament right there to the Canadian motorsport community as a family, how you kind of pick up. And I mean, sometimes you have to cut your losses and tuck and run. That was the case with the production car series, and the Radicals had to bail, and
Right.
like a lot of the families, and like you said too, Michael, like when people have to come back the next day, but I mean, people just wanted it so bad that they go home, throw your crap in the garbage or whatever, and do some laundry and come back the next day. And and as you guys were kind of alluded to there, we've got a hell of a NASCAR Pinty Series season on the way already after just 2 events. And what do you we'll start with you, Michael. What do you think of the season so far, and what's maybe your biggest surprise out of the box?
The season has actually just been it's been good in and I know that seems like a simple statement to make, but it's the talent of the drivers have.
Oh, cliffhanger.
Or nice if we say, on the TV broadcast you'll hear, oh, there's 20 drivers that can win here. There isn't. I think there's already some top level contenders, but what I love is just the depth of talent in the field. Drivers who, young and veteran, plying their trade.
Well
And
said.
yeah, it's great to see. The series is just underrated. I think I said it on our podcast. I said it to a couple of people at the track. It is really underrated, and I think it got showcased the most at CTMP at how underrated those drivers are. They started a race in changeable conditions. Road course racing is difficult in
Yeah.
any way. Put it into a 3,500-pound stock car with tires that, in my opinion, are probably, these should work in the wet. I don't think they're really wet weather, true, like developed hardcore wet weather tires. Although I know Goodyear owns General Tire now, so I'm sure there's probably more development in it. But to see a driver like Brandon Watson finish in 8th, a driver who has zero, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong because I know you know them really well, but as far as I know, has zero road course experience.
That was his very
to be able to do that. Yeah,
friggin' right, man. Trial by fire.
Yeah, and so he was probably he's
so
been
fun
super
to watch
impressive.
it too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so true, Michael. I don't think that I thought he would be able to make it through the field. Obviously, it was a tough event, and so you talked about Brandon Watson kind of surprising you at CTMP, Michael. But before we get to James, what was your surprise for the season so far?
I don't know. That sounds really like I'm copping out on that. That
He's not welcome back.
came out.
He's not welcome back, Graydon. He's copping out.
No, that Trayton came out. Trayton came out and said, I think to the entire field, this is my season. You took it away from. I think you took a couple away from me last year, or you took one away from me, and I'm not backing down. So that's the biggest surprise, that he was just so like out the gate, fastest in practice. Brandon beat him at to pole at Sunset. I would say that's because Brandon just has more short track experience. Brandon ran down in the States, the southern United States, and he's got a strong family lineage with his uncle Glenn, who's multiple track champion at the former Barrie Speedway and Oscar Outlaw Super Late Model, and his father, who I got to watch go airborne at Barrie Speedway, Tim, was a pretty good driver as well, who ran the number 9 at Barrie Speedway as well. So I think the young guns, there you go. The young guns are the most surprising thing this season so far.
All right, nice. James, now comes the loaded question for you about what is the biggest surprise so far in the 2022 NASCAR Pinty Series season?
I'm always a fan of a new team in any sport. I always, I go to them for, something new, and I know that there could be a chance that the team could have, some hard times ahead of them. But you know what, GM Pie coming into 2022, fielding a new team with the 2 cars. They're piloted with Andrew Ranger and Mark Antoine Cameron Mac. With Andrew in the 27 and Cameron in the number 96 together, they're a sweet little combination. I would have to say, seeing both of them together and in an organization like GM Pi, I think it's a perfect. They're in perfect company all together. And before the season, it was interesting to see. You would always talk. You'd always think, which one is going to be the one that's going to get that first win between Mac and between Andrew. And when I was going around at CTMP there, it was real awesome to see Andrew finding his way up front, and a real strong showing from that team from both rounds, round 1 and round 2, on the short track and on the road course. Andrew Granger, though, having his struggles at Sunset, no doubt. And another notable too, guys, is watching DJ Kennington race these last 2 races, just watching him just work. We saw those setbacks at Sunset, but
looking fit as
it was so it was so
right.
cool seeing him and Trey race again, and it was so entertaining on the TSN broadcast, just watching them go around and around, and just that at the moment after the race that Wallace here was able to actually was in a perfect time, perfect place for the moment where after Trey was able to get his win, and DJ coming up to him and giving him some props, having a little moment with him, saying, hey, you got this. And that's something that was a couple of just things right there for me. And we're early in the season. We're only just a couple weeks away from Chaudière, from the day that we're recording this, but we can still get a little bit of a picture of what things are looking like. I know it's always early to look at the championship standings, but it's still interesting to look at it just to kind of get a little bit of a rough idea of it. And you just got to give it to Kevin Lacroix, just for showing some presence in those first 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the two of you guys, obviously, you've both been represented. Michael was at Sunset. James, you were at CTMP. Both of those races finished under questionable finishes in terms of contact and moves that are, and this is, we wouldn't say we got called up, but we got somebody that disagreed with our opinion on the Kevin Lacroix deal, which is totally cool. Everybody's allowed. I think it was maybe Monty on Twitter that had that, but which is totally cool. I mean, we want people to share their opinions, but I'm very curious on both races, on both of your opinions, with Rafael Lessard running Cameron up the track on the final restart before they made contact into one, and then Lacroix and Klutz contact on the final corner at CTMP. So, Michael, I'm going to let you start this one off. James is going to have a minute to stew over this and think about what his answer is going to be. Michael, what about both of those race finishes?
I think that it is really hard to win, and it is getting harder to win. It is getting harder to win across the board in every series that we're seeing in the world. And it's just because everybody is, we're just getting better. Everybody's getting better. We're better athletes in every sport. And that's just the way it is. And this not giving an inch and just going for the win, it's inevitable. And it's okay. I mean, that's NASCAR. Remember the famous thing, boys have at it. So and this, what I'm going to tee that up with or set that with, and this is not a slight against anybody, but that stuff will always keep happening unless NASCAR steps in to stop it. And I'm not saying they need to or anything like that. But I'm just saying that those moves will continue to happen. It could have easily have been Lassard. Well, he wasn't there, but it could have easily have been, Cameron doing that to Clute. It could have been. I don't think Gary would have done that to somebody else, but some guys are more okay with doing it. Kevin's sponsors pay Kevin to win. And the moves that happened at Sunset, that was Cameron getting into Lassard there. GM Paye pays Cameron to win races, not come second. Nobody cares about second. Second sucks. And these guys want to win, and I'm okay with it.
Yep. That's what this series is kind of founded. I mean, there's a code, and like you guys have both, like you've touched on, the situation will sort of police itself. You can't do the crime if you don't do the time. I mean, that's going to be in Gary Clute's memory bank for maybe another time down the road. It's pretty odds on that Gary's going to run the whole season, so he has all kinds of time to plan out his revenge and everything. And it's like I said, 100%. Like the stories that have come out of the first two races this season are amazing storylines, and it's what makes us want to tune in for the next one and the next one. And I can't wait to see if in the next 11 races Gary exacts his revenge when it suits him best. That's
may not be the smiling assassin anymore.
Yeah,
he might just be
the whole model of the NASCAR playoffs
and the
Cup Series is exacting it. Whether they wanted it to or not, by and large, it's kind of exacting revenge when it suits you the most, and kind of hooping the other guy when it doesn't suit him the most. So, I mean, it's if I can say that, that's the best term I could think of off the cuff. But I mean, it's exciting stuff, and I can't agree with you guys more. It's cool seeing a team come out of the box and be competitive, and how cool is it seeing Ranger? As I said, like, DJ's a buddy. It was always cool having a wheelman, a race winner, a champion like Andrew Ranger in the DJK fold. But I mean, Ranger is a champion and a wheelman in his own right.
Yep.
It's good to see him with a solid ride, with solid funding behind him, and see him back in his number 27, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So
that's a general.
Yeah, we'll go back to James on this one about what your thoughts were for these first two races. I'm going to add another question on top of that. I mean, you're going to remember all this. You got to be on the ball here, James, because because Graydon add another point about Andrew Ranger in the championship that we talked about. He's 17th in the point standings out of 19 full-time guys. Is he out of it? So I'm going to add that to your list of stuff.
Nice layer.
We talked about how competitive this series is, and I don't know if two races in, if you're 17th, he's going to have to rattle off at least 3 wins, I think, to move up there.
Right. Yeah. And for Andrew Ranger, I'm sure he's got that in his mind at somewhere there, but I'm sure he's not worried about it because he's got at least 2 wins in him. For sure.
For sure.
There's a couple of tracks that he's still able to excel at. He's still able to, I mean, we do, unfortunately, I wish we had more races in the Pinty season, but we do only have a few. So, I mean, he doesn't have time to dilly-dally. He's got to get on it. I think he's got to get on at Chaudière or also a track like iCar. There's going to be places, especially when they go out east to Newfoundland. What are they going to figure out there? Maybe that's an up in the air thing, and I think he could be a contender there. We've seen Andrew excel at the short tracks, but I'm confident to say he's probably got nothing to worry about. He's got a lot of work to do to get up there. You're right. He's got to get at least 3 wins to make something happen, to find himself up there in the contention. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be so fun. I'm so excited to watch.
Yeah, it is.
But so going back to the first the round in the finish in the first round and the finish in the second round, You got me on my wires crossed, Cam. These are intense questions right here on SNS, guys. The real questions are here. So looking back to that first race, when you're in an overtime situation, opening season, all these drivers are looking to make a moment for themselves to get up there. That's exactly what we saw there. And, you got to give it to, I always love when I'm in iRacing or whenever I'm watching a race and my driver is in third place, I love the catbird seat. And, for Trey to sneak by there in that finish, that's just a product of hard racing there. And it was a bit of controversial finish there at that first round. But from a fan's perspective, what more could you ask for? I'm standing on my feet, hands in the air. You can't ask for anything more than that from a fan's perspective. And same thing at CTMP as well with the finish of round 2 there. Now I was able to have an actual direct view of that, and I also was able to go on the track, and that video will be up at some point on the Wide World of Motorsports social media. I went on the track and I pretended to be like a collision investigator. You could see where it all happened, and it was interesting. Some of us in the media center were looking over that replay after the press conference, and we're just kind of deciphering it. And some of us iRacers that we think we know what's going on
because we're pros.
And it looked a lot like two guys that were just saying "F you." I'm taking this win, and the other guy's saying, "No, I'm taking this win." It didn't look, I didn't see anything. In my opinion, I didn't see anything bad. Gary was taking his space there, and that's a part of the track where it's hard. Once you get a situation where you can make yourself go too wide, or you can pass, you're going to take that. And Kevin made a very valid point in the press conference there, and in our interview with him, he made a very valid point there where you're going to take that opportunity. And Kevin had the line, and he saw a line, and Gary saw a line, and you saw two guys that are going for a win. And these guys, especially Gary, you hate to see it for both of those guys if they ended up going in the wall. And to be honest with you, it would still feel bad if Kevin was the guy that got the shorter end of the stick. There were two competitors, two athletes that were going for the win. And as we know, sometimes in sports, someone's going to get the short end of the stick. And that's what we saw there.
I think we're both I think we're all in a kind of agreement here for that, because, obviously there's people that, and there was a lot of them that just said, "Oh, that's a completely dirty move." But again, you look at it and there's a difference between what we saw from Dylan and Chase Elliott at that corner, from what we've seen from Todd and Noah Gregson in that corner. I don't feel from that move, I watched it back a couple of times, and I still don't feel that Lacroix had tried to wreck him. I don't think it came across that way. It doesn't, to me, come off as malicious, because we've seen Kevin do this before. He was able to bump Tagliani on the final corner, didn't wreck him, but bumped him. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a very, very clear difference between completely running somebody over, like what we saw with Logano and Byron at Darlington. We didn't even attempt to pass him. Well, you saw in this pass, Lacroix tried to, and Gary blocked him. So he's going to he's going to do whatever he can. Do I think, now I'm curious if you guys think, if Gary is in the championship hunt, which right now he's fourth in points, does he pay back Lacroix?
Payback is a big word. Payback.
So we'll go with the James first.
Yeah, the thing about that is, and it'd be interesting to see Gary's point of view from that. I'm sure, keep an eye on his podcast, Gary Flute podcast. Keep an eye out for that. But then again, with putting your car in jeopardy for something like that, I'm sure Gary is the kind of guy that would go, no, not worth it. I'll find another way to. And I know Gary would tell you he'll beat him on the track, and he'd much rather that. And even though I'm sure he would tell you something else too about that, what happened. But at the end of the day, I bet that we're going to probably anticipate that something's going to happen between them. But all in all, will we see Gary and Lacroix maybe have a tussle at the Honda Indy in July?
Ooh.
Something like that.
Ooh.
Right. And
Ooh.
and the thing about that, and I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. We'll go to Wallace here. Payback's a big word, though. And honestly, in that situation where Lacroix, where was he going to turn in that finish? Going back to the finish, he had nowhere to go but to turn. So yeah, I wonder if there even is an issue there.
It's a good point.
I think that Gary will not go out of his way to pay it back, but if it's convenient for him, he'll do it. So if he finds that Kevin is in front of him and, he's not going to bump him when he's got another 125 laps to go in the race, he's going to do it when there's 5 laps to go in the race. And he's probably going to wait till, I think you'll see it at Delaware. That's where you'll see Gary give him a little payback, probably. And just to kind of, one little thing I was thinking of when you were talking about how people were upset with Kevin and everything like that. People might not like this, but that's because people don't. And this is mean to say, I don't think people like Kevin, so they think that move was dirty. If that was LP, if that was Tag, if that was Gary, if that was somebody else other than Kevin, it would have been an okay move. It was a bad move to people because it was Kevin, and that's not
great
fair.
Point.
Yeah,
that's
you said it, Michael.
Point.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it fair to say that Kevin Lacroix, whether he likes it or not, or most or other people like it or not, is he Canada's Kyle Busch? I kind of think he is.
Exactly.
I feel like
he's way too nice. I don't think he's as douchey.
That's true.
Kyle Busch.
But
sorry, I shouldn't say that word. You talk about
like God-given talent for a wheelman, like Kevin. And as you said, if he wanted to send Gary, he had every opportunity to lay it to him hard.
Yeah.
Kevin is a very cerebral driver. Like whether his haters want to give him credit for it or not, you don't get as many wins as he had as fast as he's gotten them by being a hack. I mean, this guy is a natural born talented wheelman. And as you said,
dominates
it's just
the track.
Yeah, yes. You ask Gary, Gary's going to say he was running his line. Kevin's going to say he was running his line. It just happened those two lines intersected at a time at the race that it really wasn't super convenient for Gary to have it happen to him.
I like that.
We've had the interactions with Kevin, and I said we talked about it all the time. We talked about it on the podcast that was actually released today, talking about CTMP, and Kevin doesn't match his on-track persona. When you actually talk with him, he's very shy. He's very humble. He's actually downright hilarious. And it's funny because he doesn't fit that. Whereas we say kind of Kyle Busch has always kind of had that. He's kind of a dick So
Yeah.
he acts like it.
You know what Kevin's like. Kevin's got that Joey Logano effect.
There
Right.
you go.
Yeah.
Right.
He's
got the
great
smile.
to talk to. He's funny. He knows what he's talking about. You can respect him. He's Joey's a champ. I know Kevin's not, but in the Pinty series, but behind the wheel with the helmet on, it's all about bumper to bumper and what they want.
We have one thing that we're going to go over before we wrap it up here, Graydon. And
sure.
We were able to do predictions on our last show for Chaudier, and then we didn't do championship predictions, but because you are here, we have to ask you guys your predictions for Chaudier, because actually this podcast is going to release Tuesday before Chaudier, so it's actually a perfect time to talk about it. Right now, we're looking at potentially the biggest field that we've seen at Chaudier in quite a while. You're looking at potentially 23, at the very most 24 cars at Chaudier, and we know it's small enough for 18. You add a couple more on there, it's going to get really crazy.
Quarter mile.
Yeah, it's going to be. I love this track though so much.
Yes,
I absolutely love it. So, James, who is winning at Chaudier?
Well, you can always go to the classic. You go back to those last races in previous years. You could always, as Larry Mack would go into his race trends, he would pull up his little notebook and his little pen, and you go back through it. You look at some of those drivers though in the past couple of years. We look back at 2019 with the win from Raf there, and with his performance in round one, it looks like he's gonna be a force to be reckoned with at those short tracks in the 2022 season. And I think if I want to just pick one guy, it'll be Raphael Lessard.
Okay. It's funny, Graydon, because somebody else picked Raphael Lessard. Do you remember who that was?
Not offhand. I'm sorry.
No,
maybe
a real smart
Cam
guy.
K, maybe
a real
Might have
smart guy
mentioned that.
picked that.
yeah.
Real smart guy picked that. But James, who's a sleeper pick for Chaudier?
Well,
If you have one.
let's look into some of the stable in 22 racing. Tag, talk about a force to be reckoned with. I mean, you can always go look back at a vet. I mean, he's a top 5 guy at a track like that. And I would say, especially if you want some momentum, if Tag wants some momentum to make something happen in the 2022 season, now is the time. And I said the same thing for Ranger too. Now is the time for GM Pie and 22 Racing to make something happen here early on in the season.
Well, it's anybody's guess. It's early in the season. We have, like you said, the GMPIA team is super hungry and definitely chomping at the bit to come out and show what they're made of. Scott Steckley and his team, damn well they're not going to rest on laurels. They're always trying to improve on, especially their oval program hasn't been up to their standards in the last couple of seasons, so they're looking to get back on their game. So I mean, there's a ton of hungry drivers, and Chaudier, I mean, it's just such a, like I said, it's French for boiler. I mean, it's going to be hot and crazy, and the better part of 24 cars on that quarter mile track is going to be eye candy
Right.
for the fans.
I just don't know how many finish. Like,
yeah, that's the
we
thing.
We saw how bad the traffic was at CTMP and how bad the traffic was at Sunset. This is smaller.
Yeah, you're never not going to be in traffic.
Right. Do we have an entry list, an official entry list for?
Not official yet. That's supposed to be on Monday.
Right.
So what we have right now is just what I've come up with our 19 full timers: Simone Dion Vienne, Matthew Kingsbury, and Donald Teage.
Right. So some of those ones too might be some guys to watch just to race for fun. It's always good just watching these guys race hard on these different tracks, especially when you go from a short track to a road course to a short track, and you have all this time in between these races. And I'm sure these guys aren't just sitting around sleeping, but it's going to be fun seeing these guys get back into that.
This is something Cam and I have talked about too, James, is EHR and Brett Taylor, that flagship 3 car, which is normally a huge factor on the road courses on the bull rings. Hathaway knocked it out on the road course, of course, but seeing Brett Taylor get a good run in after a pretty slow start is definitely what Jason and Jamie and Ed and everybody and Brett himself too at EHR want to see.
Yeah, we've talked. We can talk about this for ages, really, about like the amount of different people who can win. But Michael, I'm going to ask you. We got
Yes, sir.
We got 2 Lassards so far. What was your pick, Graydon? I can't remember. Who did you pick
For
a Chaudier?
I
think you may have said Ranger.
I
can't remember.
That does sound like something I would say.
It does sound like something you would say. But
let's go with Ranger.
All we know is 2 very smart guys have gone with Lassard. So,
but Michael, who do you have as a winner and then a sleeper pick for Chaudier?
Tag coming out. He's got to make up for lost time.
Ooh.
CTMP was unlucky for him, although he did bounce back with the 7th. A tag for sure. And then a sleeper, I think Gary is going to come out and show that CTMP wasn't a fluke.
Oh,
nice.
Because we talked about this earlier, Graydon, was that right now, actually I talked about it on the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour, which you can catch on GeForce TV Mondays at 7. Shameless plug, Mick Foley.
Yeah, good. Do
it. Have a nice day. But it's funny because RGC Sports, I think, has 3 of the top 5 in points right now. RGC drivers, if I'm not mistaken. Trayton.
Yeah.
Brandon. And who's the last one?
Alex. Isn't Alex?
No. Maybe just,
no.
Who am I thinking of? Oh, and Gary. Duh.
Yeah, sorry.
3 of the top 5.
Yeah.
And I'm like, RGC Sports wasn't something that I was expecting that was going to blow up overnight, but wow, to start the season, 3 of their guys all in the championship hunt. I picked a sleeper as Brandon Watson, which is not really a sleeper. I think he's going to be really good on the short tracks all season. But I'm going to pose this question to both of you guys. Is his lack of road course and street course experience, is that going to hurt his championship hopes, or is he good enough that he can win without performing very well on the road courses? We'll start with Michael.
I think road courses have always been a staple in the Pinty series long before. I know you've seen road courses in NASCAR, but we're talking, we have road courses, we have street courses. I mean, NASCAR Cup Series doesn't have street courses. I mean, they don't, even in the top 3, none of them race on a street course. Mm-hmm. So, yes, because they are just a prevalent part of this championship. And with 12 races and 4 road courses, a third, 33% of the races you need to do well in. I mean, I think you can get by with I think you can have 1, maybe 2 bad weeks in this series. It really depends on, it really depends on how your top contenders do, right? If they're not having bad days, then you're just SOL.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
James?
Well, if you got to go with Brandon Watson, you got to go with him. We saw him do well at, shot in the dark. We saw him do well at CTMP. And where are we going to be going next for a road course? So we're going to be going to
Toronto.
So put him off to the side as a sleeper for Toronto. Maybe wouldn't that be crazy? This guy with little to no course experience is able to pull off something like that. I always love seeing guys like TJ Reno Model race around. Mark Dilley. These guys are fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But if RGC Sports, for the drivers that they got, and for the 2022 season, if I were to pick just anyone out of that team, though, just love watching Brandon Watson. We saw a lot of him too in the APC season, especially recently too, and all around too. He knows his way around a short track, and I'm sure he'll have no issues figuring out his way around a road course.
We're gonna wrap things up here with the loaded question of all questions. And Graydon, I haven't had you answer this either yet. So, boys, it is prediction time, and we'll have to revisit this and get you guys back on at the end of the season. I think that's something we definitely have you guys in
That'd be
for.
fantastic.
I love that.
And we can celebrate whoever picked the right. But who is winning? I know Graydon's prepping for it right now. Who's winning the 2022
Dibs last.
You can't. NASCAR Pinty Series Championship? I will go first.
I mean, let our guests go first is what I meant to say.
I will go first to
Nice.
spare everybody, because I have no luck when it comes to race picks, as Graydon well knows. I'm very good at picking who crashes out early in races, but I'm not really good at picking winners. Although I should just follow what your kids do, because they seem to pick all the time.
Yeah, my kids are
the
sharks,
winners.
man.
And Jess, actually, for
Nice.
that matter, she always goes with Hamlin.
Yeah, I know.
That
They
seems
didn't
to
know
work out
squat.
for her
I taught
too.
them like everything I know, and look where I am in
I'm
the toilet.
I'm actually going to go. I'm not going to go out on a complete limb here. I wish I could say that I think Kevin Lacroix is going to win the title this year. I really wish I could say that, but I can't, because ultimately I don't think it's going to happen. That sucks, but I've got a really good feeling about that kid in that number 20 car. And we talked about it before. You mentioned it earlier, James, as well. Like what he and Michael, what you guys both said about him. And sometimes you got to be lucky. He was lucky a lot last year, but he had a lot of bad luck as well. And he could have won at least half the races last year. So if he goes on a tear this season, I think it's his to lose. Yeah, I think it's his to lose, really. With how young he is, and if he can do what he did a lot last year, which is win poles and start up front, you don't even have to worry about the rest of the field because you're lapping them, right? So that's my pick. Graydon Bunn, you said you wanted to go last. Are you still wanting to go last?
I can go now if you want me to.
I should have made a stipulation that you can't pick somebody that already has been taken, like the door bumper.
Yeah,
guy.
no, that's fun. Like,
Yes, I like that. You can't do that. You can't pick the same guy.
Okay,
yeah,
so Trey is
I
taken.
like that too. You did mention him, and I think like for the reasons Kevin's been to the dance before, he's lost the championship. He knows how to win. I gotta say, Kevin could put it together. I think he can do it this year. If it's not this year, if I'm wrong, which is not exactly a huge surprise, but if I am wrong, I mean, I still say Lacroix got a NASCAR Pinty Series championship in him. If not this year, then another year.
Okie doke. James.
We're gonna have to go with the Mac Attack. Marc-Antoine Cameron, just imagine you got a fresh, new, squeaky new team, and you you're out there and you want to kind of make a statement for yourself, with a driver like himself who, he's had some struggles here and there over the last few years.
Yep.
We're talking about a driver that it's fair to say he's put in his time now. He ran full time the last few seasons, with the exception of 2016. And I think he's put himself on the mat. He's led lots of laps. He shows that he's good at tracks. Yes, he's a little short on wins, but I'm sure that this is his moment to come out. And with that, we've seen it. He has it in the team, in the car, and his equipment, and we've seen it. I know it's early in the 2022 season, but we can easily say that he's already a force. He's already someone to be considered as up there in that championship run. So definitely Mac Attack.
So we've got the Big Mac, we've got Trayton, and we've got Kevin Lacroix. Michael Wallace, you're going to wrap up our championship picks. Who are you taking to win the 2022 NASCAR Pinty Series title?
Well, that's a lot of pressure. And you guys have all picked
Every single
good.
one.
Every single championship. No. You have all picked good, but I have picked wise, and I have picked Alex Tagliani. Because
Really?
Yeah. How can you know what? He's sitting third in the championship. He's 8 points out. That doesn't mean a whole lot. He's going on a tear. I told you, he's winning Chaudière, and he's going right to the championship. He's going to be in Bristol next year, getting the winner's trophy. Alex Tagliani.
Well, I didn't even consider that. He is pretty good in Toronto, and we are going back this year. So
that's right.
Oh, are we all going to have a little bit of we're going to have a little bit of a meetup in Toronto, boys?
Well, only one of us will be there, but we got I will be there, and we'll have some experiences at the racetrack for sure in Toronto. It's a little far for Graydon to get down there. Plus, I mean, he's a busy man, this Graydon Bunn here. Don't know if you're aware, everybody, but Mr. Graydon Bunn is not just a podcast host. No, he is a race car driver this season. So he's a little busy on that side.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that is really cool, man. Good for you. That's awesome.
Thanks. Give her a whirl and see what happens.
We would be remiss if we did not give you guys an opportunity to talk about where we can find the wide world of motorsports on social media. Get you guys some new followers and new listeners. Obviously, I always love your conversations. You guys have such a chill conversation, which I really like. It's so laid back, which I find we're really frantic and loud, but you guys are nice and just kind of chill when you talk about stuff.
Yeah.
So
we have our frantic and loud moments outside when we roll the tapes. So we keep the good stuff, the PG stuff up on the screen. So real cool stuff, actually. And this was that we just, as of recent, we're on the FM dial in St. John, New Brunswick, on 107.3 local FM. So people out there, you can check us out there. We're monthly, so that's every Saturday at 1 p.m. in St. John. Monthly on Friday mornings on 102.7 Radio Waterloo. That's also on Rogers Digital Cable Channel 946 in Southern Ontario. We're on the Performance Motorsports Network app. You can just open up your device app store, just look that up. And on social media, mainly the Facebooks. Wallace he figured out the Instagram, so we're on Instagram, and we're both figuring out Twitter, so we're on there as well at the WWOMS, and also on our website, which we have a big announcement coming up on our next episode. We're going to be able to shorten our website URL because there's some good news coming up. And there's a reason why. So we'll leave that for next week when you guys listen to our podcast.
We need a new running gag now.
Yeah, on the website, the Wide World of Motorsports podcast.wordpress.com, which is an unnecessarily long URL. But we'll get
Thank
that.
you. Thank you for admitting it. Thank you for finally admitting it.
I never denied it. But yeah, so we're there. All our podcasts are there. Our esports team stuff is there. We do a lot of iRacings, which we're about to do a stream here as well, actually, in the next few minutes. So yeah, we're looking forward to our next episode, a big announcement on the Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all of the major streaming platforms next week. So very, very excited for our announcement, and hoping you guys will hopefully come down for a special event we're hoping to put together in the summer. But more those details will be provided next week.
Cool, boys.
Sure. Yeah.
It's awesome to have this motorsports landscape that we have. The extracurricular coverage, I guess you'd say, outside of TSN and everything, and having all of us kind of rise up and doing our thing and having it available for the masses to come in and check it out and get real honest to God testimonials of how much we love the racing. I think that's a great sales tactic. If they want to sell racing, there's no better salespeople than the people that take them in. So, I mean,
Exactly.
we'll all just keep pulling the rope in the same direction. So you boys keep doing what you're doing, and thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you to you guys.
Yeah, thanks again. And I always see it as we're fighting for we're on the same side,
Same
and
team.
Yep.
we're just
Same team.
we're all in different platoons, and we'll see each other out. Sometimes we'll see each other in the
See each
battle
other on the
zone.
beach.
Yeah,
You bet.
exactly. We'll, and we'll catch up, and it's fun. It's always fun doing that too. And it's like we're our own little cult or community. We're tight knit, and especially in the last few years, seeing the motorsport scene, with the podcast scene as well, in particular, seeing it at the track, and it's always great seeing more and more podcasts and more people covering the sport.
Absolutely. Keep fighting the good fight, boys.
Exactly,
Yeah.
boys.
You too, guys.
Keep on.
Thank you. Good luck this season, Graydon.
Thank you very much, fellas.
Yeah, thanks,
wanna
Cam.
thank-
Thanks, Bill.
We want to thank the boys from the Wide World of Motorsports for joining us on the Stickers and Scuffs podcast. We will catch you all next week.